The air in the apartment was thick, heavy with the scent of jasmine candles, her pathetic attempt at masking the stench of resentment that had been festering between us for months. My shoulders screamed, still aching from the day's grind, a constant reminder of the physical toll my life took just to keep her, us, afloat. I'd walked into the apartment expecting, I don't know what I expected, maybe a flicker of the woman I'd fallen in love with, a hint of gratitude for the sacrifices I made. Instead, I got a damn earthquake. I want a divorce, Liam. Her voice was flat, devoid of any emotion, like she was ordering coffee. I swear, she didn't even look up from her phone. I stood there, a goddamn statue in the middle of the living room, the aroma of stale work, sweat, and takeout. I hoped she'd enjoy filled the silence. 7 years. 5 married. A daughter. Our daughter, Lily. And this was how it ended? No build-up, no discussion. Just 4 cold, sharp words, slicing through the fragile tapestry of our life. What? It was barely a whisper, my throat suddenly constricted. She finally looked up, her eyes like chips of ice. No remorse, no regret, just a chilling satisfaction. I've already talked to a lawyer. Here's the deal. She launched into her demands, a litany of grievances dressed as entitlements. The house, the car, primary custody of Lily, and enough monthly support to bankrupt a small nation. It was a goddamn shopping list for a life she hadn't earned, a life I'd built with my sweat and my sacrifice. I ran the numbers in my head, each figure a crushing blow. Mortgage, car payments, Lily's ridiculously expensive preschool because public school was beneath her, dance classes, utilities, groceries, and then the personal expenses. The gym membership, the mani pedis, the massages, the goddamn hair appointments that cost more than my truck payment. You're asking for everything, Nadia. I tried to keep my voice steady, years of military training kicking in, forcing a semblance of control. I can't. She shrugged, that infuriating, dismissive shrug that sent my blood pressure skyrocketing. That's what my lawyer says I can get. Oh, and I want to adjust the custody schedule. Every other weekend for you? Should be enough? Enough? Every other weekend? I lost it then. Not violently. I'm not that guy. But the dam inside me finally burst. Are you kidding me? I'm the one who takes her to school every morning. I'm the one who stays up with her when she's sick. I'm the one who taught her to swim. Who reads her stories, takes her to the park every weekend, while she was at whatever the hell she did with her free time. Nadia just picked up her phone again, completely unfazed. Yeah, well, the courts usually favor the mother. My lawyer says it's pretty standard. Then I noticed it. The silence. Where's Lily? Panic coiled in my gut. It was almost 9 p.m. on a Thursday. Lily should have been asleep hours ago. At Mom's. I figured this conversation might get emotional. She'd planned this meticulously. I'd been a goddamn fool. I set the takeout down, my appetite completely gone. How long have you been planning this? She gave me a cold, calculating smirk. Long enough to know what I'm entitled to. Entitled. The word slammed into me like a physical blow. I need some air. I couldn't breathe in that apartment, suffocating under the weight of her betrayal. Don't forget to pick up your things from the master bedroom. I've moved them to the guest room. That night was a blur of aimless driving, the city lights blurring into streaks of useless color. My phone vibrated incessantly with her texts, demanding, accusatory, manipulative. And the last one, the one that nearly sent me crashing into a guardrail. Liam, be civil about this. Lily doesn't need to see Daddy having a meltdown. She was already using our daughter as a weapon. That's when I knew this wasn't just a divorce. It was war. The next few weeks were a waking nightmare. Lawyer meetings, paperwork mountains, and watching Nadia systematically dismantle our life. She'd moved into the guest room, transforming it into her personal sanctuary, and started going out more than ever, flaunting her newfound freedom like a badge of honor. Every question about Lily was met with a curt, "She's at mom's," or "She's having a play date." I barely saw my daughter. My first meeting with my lawyer, Carl, was a cold dose of reality. Carl, a no-nonsense bulldog of a man who'd been recommended by a former Marine buddy, laid it out straight. "Look, Liam, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The demands she's making are excessive, but not unheard of. California family courts tend to favor mothers unless there's clear evidence of unfitness." "But I'm the primary caregiver," I protested. "I'm the one who's there for Lily, day in and day out." "Nadia's barely home," Carl sighed, taking off his glasses. "Do you have documentation of that? Calendars? Text messages? Witness statements?" Shit. I didn't. Like an idiot, I'd never thought I'd need to keep receipts on my own damn life. "Start documenting everything now, Liam. Every time she leaves Lily with someone else, every time she breaks a commitment, every penny you spend on the household. We're going to need all of it." Meanwhile, Nadia was painting a masterpiece of victimhood for anyone who would listen. According to her, I was a controlling, emotionally stunted military type who'd suffocated her, used money to keep her dependent. The absolute opposite of the truth. But her friends ate it up. Even some of our friends started looking at me differently, their eyes filled with pity and judgment. The first custody exchange after we set up the temporary schedule is burned into my memory forever. Nadia pulled up in my SUV, the one I was still paying for, wearing $200 leggings and a designer workout top. Lily ran to me the second she saw me, her little face lighting up. I hadn't been allowed to see her for almost 2 weeks. My chest ached with the relief of holding her, the agony of knowing it was only temporary. Nadia stood there tapping her foot, like we were inconveniencing her. "Here's her bag," she said, practically throwing it at me. "I've packed her medicine for her allergies. Don't forget to give it to her exactly at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And she needs to be in bed by 8:30. No sugar after 6, no screen time after 7, and make sure she does her dance stretches." I just stared at her, numb. I'd been the one handling Lily's medication schedule for the past 2 years because Nadia couldn't deal with the stress of remembering it. I was the one who figured out her allergy triggers, found the right doctor, set up the entire routine. "Anything else you want to explain to me about my own daughter?" I asked, my voice tight with barely suppressed rage. She just gave me this look, like I was some hired help she had to explain things to. "Just make sure she's ready by 6 p.m. on Sunday. I have yoga at 7, that damn yoga class." Yeah, we'd get to that later. Weekends with Lily were both heaven and hell. Heaven because I got to be with my little girl. Hell because I knew they were numbered. Every moment felt precious, fragile, terrifying. We'd build pillow forts in my depressing one-bedroom apartment, a ridiculously overpriced box because I needed to stay in Lily's school district. We'd bake cookies, watch Disney movies, go to the park, trying to cram a whole week's worth of love and attention into 48 hours. Lily seemed okay on the surface, but I could tell something was off. She was quieter than usual, clingier, would wake up in the middle of the night asking if I was still there. "Daddy, why don't I see you every day anymore?" Her question shattered me. What do you tell a 4-year-old when her mother has turned into someone you don't recognize? That daddy's trying his best, but the system is rigged? "Sometimes grown-ups need to live in different houses," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I love you more than anything in the whole world. You know that, right?" She nodded, hugging her stuffed bunny. "I love you too, Daddy. Can you read me another story?" I read her 3 more stories that night. Would have read her 100 if she'd asked. The drop-offs were always the worst. Lily would cling to me, crying, begging to stay longer. Nadia would stand there checking her watch, acting like we were causing some huge inconvenience. "She does this every time," Nadia would say, rolling her eyes. "You're making it worse by dragging it out. Just go already." I started noticing changes in Lily after she'd been with Nadia. She'd come back with expensive new toys, but wearing the same clothes I'd sent her in, now dirty or stained. Her hair would be tangled, like no one had bothered to brush it. She'd be exhausted, cranky from lack of sleep. When I brought it up at our next court date, Nadia's lawyer smoothly interjected, "Your Honor, Mr. Callahan is clearly trying to weaponize normal childhood behaviors against my client. Children get dirty, they play hard. Miss Petrova is providing excellent care while also trying to rebuild her life after years of being financially controlled." The judge nodded sympathetically at Nadia, who had magically produced tears right on cue. I was learning fast that perception meant everything in family court, and Nadia was a goddamn master at manipulating perceptions. Each court appearance chipped away more of my rights. The temporary custody arrangement became semi-permanent. My child support payments increased. Nadia's demands grew more outlandish. She needed more money for Lily's activities that I was never informed about, for educational supplies that I never saw, for medical expenses despite Lily being on my insurance. And through it all, I kept showing up, kept fighting, kept trying to be the dad Lily deserved, even as the system seemed determined to reduce me to nothing more than a paycheck. While all this was going down, I was still trying to keep my career together. Executive protection isn't like regular security work. You can't check out mentally. One mistake and someone could get hurt. Or worse. I was pulling 60, 70-hour weeks, trying to bank extra money because I knew Nadia's demands would bleed me dry. The schedule was brutal. 5 a.m. wake up, hit the gym, couldn't let myself go soft. 6:30 a.m. get ready for work. 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. executive protection shifts. 9:30 p.m. Tried to FaceTime Lily before bed when Nadia would allow it. 10 p.m. meal prep. Tried to sleep, fail. End up doing push-ups until exhaustion. The lack of sleep was getting to me. I'd catch myself zoning out during client briefings, missing details I never would have missed before. The divorce was consuming my thoughts, eating away at my focus. My boss, Marcus, an old army buddy who'd given me my start in the private sector, pulled me aside one day after I nearly dozed off during a client briefing. "Liam, what's going on with you?" he asked, his voice low and concerned. "Clients are starting to notice. You're not yourself." I told him everything, the divorce, the custody battle, Nadia's demands, all of it. Marcus listened, his face grim. "Look," he said finally, "you know I've got your back, but in our line of work, we can't afford distractions. These clients trust us with their lives. Take some time, get your head straight." He offered me 2 weeks of paid leave, more than generous in our industry. I spent it trying to get my life in order, meeting with Carl, organizing my finances, and trying to build a case for more custody. When I returned to work, I thought I had it under control. I was wrong. 3 weeks after coming back, I was assigned to a high-profile client, a tech billionaire who'd received some death threats. Standard protective detail, something I could have handled in my sleep before all this. We were at a restaurant, client seated with his back to the wall as protocol dictated. I was scanning the room, doing all the right things on autopilot. Then my phone buzzed. Nadia. Sending a photo of Lily at the hospital. No context, no explanation, just my little girl looking scared, hooked up to monitoring equipment. I texted back, "What happened? Is she okay? Which hospital?" No response. Called. Straight to voicemail. Called Nadia's mother. No answer. I was freaking out, trying to maintain my professional composure while my insides were being shredded. Then I caught a movement from the corner of my eye. Someone approaching our table too fast, hand reaching inside their jacket. In any other circumstance, my training would have kicked in automatically. I would have stepped between the threat and the client, neutralized the situation. Instead, I hesitated, just for a split second. But in our line of work, that's all it takes. Turned out the guy was just a fan wanting an autograph. Pulling out a notebook, not a weapon. Crisis averted. But my client noticed the delay. So did my team lead. Later that night, after confirming Lily was fine, just a routine checkup, Nadia's way of screwing with me, I got the call from Marcus. "This isn't working, Liam." "I'm sorry." 2 months later, I'm called into the office. 2 clients had complained about my lack of focus. 15 years of perfect service, 8 in the Army, 7 in private security, and just like that, I'm out. The severance was decent, but with Nadia's demands and the legal fees piling up, it wouldn't last long. "Is there anything I can do?" I asked Marcus, hating how desperate I sounded. He looked genuinely sorry. "Not right now. Get your personal life sorted, then we can talk. This industry is small. People remember both the good and the bad." I cleared out my desk while my now former colleagues awkwardly avoided eye contact. 15 years of exemplary service, multiple commendations, a spotless record, all wiped out because Nadia couldn't be bothered to send a follow-up text about our daughter being in the hospital. When I confronted her about it later, she just shrugged. "I thought you should know she was at the doctor." "Not my fault you overreacted. I lost my job because of that stunt," I told her, trying to keep my voice down because Lily was in the next room. Nadia actually smiled. "Well, that should make for an interesting conversation in court when you try to explain why you can't afford child support anymore." That's when I realized she'd done it deliberately. She wanted me to lose my job, wanted me to fail, because then she could paint me as the deadbeat dad who couldn't keep it together, couldn't provide for his kid. It was all part of her plan. The job market for specialized security work is weird. Either you're in or you're out, and word travels fast. A few of my old contacts tried to help, but nobody wants to take a chance on a guy going through a messy divorce. I started applying for everything: mall security, night watchman, bouncer, anything to keep the money coming in. Most places wouldn't touch me. Overqualified was the common response. What they meant was too expensive or flight risk. Finally landed a gig doing overnight security at a storage facility. Minimum wage, no benefits, graveyard shift. A far cry from executive protection, but it was something. The schedule was brutal in a different way. Working nights meant I barely saw daylight, barely slept. The few weekend days I had with Lily, I was a zombie, forcing myself to stay awake and present for her. Months of nothing but rejection and watching my savings drain away. Carl, my lawyer, started making noises about his fees. The apartment complex sent notices about late rent. The child support payments kept coming due, no matter how empty my bank account was. The first time I missed a child support payment, Nadia blew up my phone with texts. "Where's my money? I knew you'd turn out to be a deadbeat. Hope you enjoy jail. Lily deserves better than you." Each message felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I'd never missed a payment for anything in my life, had a perfect credit score, always paid my bills early. Now I was the guy who couldn't provide for his kid. I went to court to explain the situation, ask for a temporary reduction until I could get back on my feet. Brought all my job applications, rejection letters, bank statements showing I was nearly wiped out. Nadia showed up in another designer outfit, her lawyer looking smug next to her. "Your Honor," her lawyer started, "what we have here is a classic case of voluntary unemployment." "Mr." Callahan deliberately took a lower-paying position to avoid his obligations to his child. "He's working beneath his qualifications by choice." The judge looked at me skeptically. "Is that true, Mr. Callahan?" I tried to explain about the job loss, about the industry blacklisting, about applying for everything I could find, but it all sounded like excuses, even to my own ears. "The child support order stands," the judge ruled. "If you fall into arrears, there will be consequences." Consequences. I picked up a second job, stocking shelves at a grocery store during the day before heading to the storage facility at night. 4 hours of sleep became the norm. My health started to suffer. Lost weight, dark circles under my eyes, constant fatigue. Lily noticed during one of our weekends. She touched my face, concerned. "Daddy, are you sick?" I forced a smile. "Just a little tired, sweetheart. Daddy's working a lot right now." "Is it because of the money Mommy says you owe her?" She told Grandma, You're not paying for my dance classes anymore. That hurt worse than anything. Nadia using Lily as a pawn, making her worry about adult problems. I made sure never to speak ill of Nadia in front of Lily, but she had no such reservations about poisoning our daughter against me. 2 more missed payments and the warnings from the court got more serious. I sold my truck, sold my watch, sold anything of value just to catch up. Started surviving on ramen and peanut butter sandwiches. Picked up odd jobs on my days off, mowing lawns, painting houses, whatever paid cash. Then came that morning, 8 a.m. Loud pounding on my apartment door. I was already up. Old habits die hard, even when you're depressed. 2 cops standing there, looking uncomfortable. "Sir, we have a warrant for your arrest for failure to pay child support." The younger cop clearly didn't want to be there. Maybe he'd heard about my military service. Small town, word gets around. The older one just looked tired, like he'd done this too many times. They were professional about it, at least. Let me change into proper clothes, didn't make a scene. But walking out of my apartment building in handcuffs, that hits different. The holding cell was everything you'd expect. Cold, smelly, depressing. But the worst part was sitting there thinking about Lily. What would Nadia tell her? That Daddy's a criminal? That he didn't love her enough to pay? I tried calling Carl from the jail phone, but his secretary said he couldn't represent me anymore due to my outstanding legal bills. Perfect. The public defender they assigned me looked about 12 and had a caseload that would break a seasoned attorney. He barely glanced at my file before our court appearance. "Just tell the judge you'll pay," he advised during our 5-minute consultation. "That's all they want to hear." "With what money?" I asked. "I'm already working 2 jobs. I've sold everything I own." He shrugged, already looking past me to his next case. "Figure it out, or you'll be back here in a month." The judge was unimpressed with my situation. "Mr. Callahan, the court doesn't care how you meet your obligations, only that you do. Your child deserves support." I wanted to scream about all the ways I'd supported Lily that had nothing to do with money, about the bedtime stories and swimming lessons and doctor visits, about how Nadia was using the system to destroy me while pretending it was all about Lily's welfare. Instead, I just nodded and promised to pay. 3 days in county jail before a former Army buddy found out and posted my bail. 3 days of missing work and therefore not getting paid, of missing a scheduled weekend with Lily, of sinking even lower than I thought possible. County jail gives you a lot of time to think. I kept to myself, did push-ups in my cell, tried to maintain some kind of routine. The other guys mostly left me alone. Maybe they could tell I wasn't the usual type they got in there. When I got out, there was a stack of mail waiting at my apartment. Bills mostly, and a thick envelope with no return address. Then came the letter from Danny. Danny was my old teammate from the security company, one of the few guys I truly trusted. The letter was thick, and as soon as I started reading, I understood why. "Liam, I've been carrying this for too long. You deserve to know the truth." Danny laid it all out. He'd been doing security for some high-end hotel events, and he'd seen Nadia there multiple times, with her yoga instructor, Brent. But they weren't doing yoga. The first time I saw them, I thought I was mistaken, but then it kept happening. Different hotels, different events, but always them, always looking too close to be just friends. I took photos, kept a log of dates and times. I know this is going to hurt, but there's more. The next part of the letter made me physically sick. The timeline doesn't add up. Nadia was seeing Brent before Lily was born, way before. I've got security footage, timestamps that prove it. I've been sitting on this info for years, Liam. When you guys seemed happy, I couldn't bring myself to wreck your family. But now that she's putting you through hell, you deserve to know what you're fighting for. Inside the envelope were dozens of photos. Nadia and Brent at hotels, restaurants, shopping together. Some dated from before our wedding, some from when she was pregnant, some from just weeks ago. Sitting in my crappy apartment, looking at those photos, everything started making sense. All those late-night yoga classes, the weird work schedule she claimed Brent had, the way she'd get defensive if I ever suggested joining one of her classes. And Lily. God, Lily. I stared at her photo on my nightstand, really looking at her features for the first time with this new knowledge in mind. Her blue eyes, mine are brown. Her hair color lighter than mine or Nadia's. The way she smiled, always thought she got that from my mom. Had I been willfully blind all these years? Had I seen what I wanted to see because I loved that little girl so damn much? I called Danny immediately, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. "Why now?" I asked when he picked up. "Why not when it could have saved me all this hell?" Danny sounded genuinely remorseful. "I thought about it every day, Liam. But you seemed happy. You loved that kid so much. I couldn't be the one to destroy that. Then when the divorce happened, I figured you guys had your reasons. That maybe things had just run their course naturally. So what changed? I saw Nadia and Brent at another event last week. Overheard them laughing about you, about how they were taking you for everything. That's when I knew I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I sat with this information for a whole day, trying to process it. Part of me wanted to confront Nadia immediately, to scream and rage at her for the years of lies. But the Marine in me, the tactician, knew better. This was ammunition, possibly the only kind that could help me win this war she'd started. I went to the storage facility that night, worked my shift in a daze. When morning came, instead of going home to sleep, I went to a different lawyer's office, one recommended by Danny, who specialized in paternity fraud.